If you think model railroading is expensive, then you haven't seen this layout. Hi, this is Burr Stewart, and join me for a quick tour of Bob Roegge's Gn15 model railroad, which he built probably for under $1,000 over a 5-year period using only cardboard cereal boxes, acrylic paints, inexpensive toy cars from the drugstore, Thomas the Tank Engine toys in HO scale, and you just won't believe this. He doesn't even use Katy couplers. He uses homemade Lincoln pin couplers that are just made of metal wire.
But he cuts it. I get how he paints it. The painting, but the fact that he cuts it and it looks that good. It's just...
Every one of these buildings you see in this layout was scratch built using cardboard that he got from cereal boxes. He's obviously a master artist because he's been able to paint and weather these buildings to look absolutely beautiful.
Yes, sir. And your next work is in also in Geneseo? We're going to do Geneseo. Okay. We got one car to pick up. I don't know whether that one will fit.
Oh, it's not fit.
Oh, no. Is he too long for the saddle? I think he might be. We're going to have to do a saw-by.
Now the same goes for the rolling stock. Every one of these cars and the caboose, the engines, they're all completely scratch built, mostly out of cardboard and a little balsa wood. And he designed an ingenious Lincoln pin coupler system, which is a lot of fun to run.
Okay, what I would do is stop right there, and I would probably back a couple of the cars off of this one.
And I was there visiting the layout last year, and I was just amazed at how much fun everyone had.
Keep going.
Now, another fascinating thing about this layout is that it's all hand-laid track, HO gauge, I guess you'd call it, the same gauge as HO track, and he never once even used a track gauge. He just used a wheel set to get the track gauge just right. And because he installs dead rail radio-controlled power in his engines, the track has no wiring. It's not powered in any way. It's just sitting there supporting the locomotives, but without any electricity on it. These little engines that he built, they're 3D printed superstructures over Bachmann Thomas the Tank Engine mechanisms. And then he detailed and painted and weathered these engines. They're just gorgeous. They look as good as any brass engine I've ever seen. And only for a tiny fraction of the cost. I haven't even begun to describe the layout. I've just been talking about all the infrastructure, the cars, the locomotives, the track. Three toots means we're backing up, probably to pick up the rear end of our train so we can proceed. I was just blown away seeing this, and not only is it a gorgeous layout, but it's so much fun to operate. Now, we're going to see here how you couple up between two cars. Bang! You take a little stick with a crooked pin on it, you'll see that here. You pick up the loop from one car and you place it on the other. Just like that. And now the cars are coupled, and he's built all of these Lincoln pin mechanisms with the same type of wire. There, here we go. Isn't that amazing? No Katy couplers to purchase, nothing. And in his operating session that I attended, there were 4 sets of 2 operators for a total of 8 operators in the room, having meets and passes, exchanging cars between each other, running from one staging yard to the other end. It was a fascinating operation, and the whole thing was done very slowly and casually with these Lincoln pin couplers. I mean, look at these trees. They're all just made from furnace filter, just like you and I would make, very low cost. Here we are on the far side of the layout, approaching the staging yard, I believe. And again, he used toilet paper tubes for these tank cars. It's just incredible what he did. It's so ingenious. And obviously, the artistry is just beyond belief. The weathering, the painting.
Definitely paints it. The painting, like,
And you'll notice if you look carefully in the cabooses, there are little hooks where there are extra Lincoln pin sets that are there for you to remove if you need an extra one.
The foundation is foam, okay? It is.
and you're just cutting it with.
Another thing he showed us is the scenery that he does. It's so inexpensive. He just takes the pink foam, cuts it into little bricks, glues the bricks in, and then paints them. Isn't that amazing?
Just takes minutes.
I want to. Can I get a photo of this?
Yeah.
I want to.
This is a template.
It just comes out beautifully. Again, no cost.
I mean, all along here, this is the same thing right here.
I didn't hear anything about how he built these various loads for his cars, but he did, and I'm sure it was, I think he said something about using clay for the sacks, and those boxes are probably made with cardboard or paper, probably made with paper. But I'm telling you, just balsa and cardboard and paint. I'm not sure where that coal came from, but it's probably really inexpensive too. Somebody probably gave him a piece of real coal and he smashed it up with a hammer. Look at this scene. Nice. He gets these cars from the drugstore, inexpensive, and then really works them over with a bunch of, painting and weathering and detailing. See, he's even got a LED light in the lantern there on the caboose, which again is radio controlled or battery powered, something like that. But it's a very inexpensive mechanism. I think he had an on-off switch on that caboose. He used that little metal clip I showed you. So here we're arriving in the same staging yard that we started in the beginning of the movie, and we're just terminating our train right there. And I wanted to show you a couple of other interesting features about the layout. These were the tables that the operators used for looking at their car cards and figuring out where to drop things off. And he just put a couple holes or tubes, I guess, in the fascia that the dowels would fit in. And then when he has people over, he sticks those in. When he doesn't, he takes them out. Isn't that clever? You can see this is a very industrial short line. The HO track represents about 15-inch gauge, which would have been used in a very remote area. I wanted to show some of the details and give you one more chance to see the Lincoln pin coupler in action. They were going to uncouple this time, so you just pull it off, drop the mechanism, and head on out. You want to couple it back up again? You just put that loop on there. It's a little tricky, but not that hard, really. And of course, this is a G-scale model, so. And then underneath the layout, there are no wires underneath the layout. This is just a layer of extruded insulation foam on a thin benchwork of 1x2s or 1x3s. And the only electronics in the whole layout, other than the locomotives, was this ocean sound that you heard there for a second. This is a still photograph of the bridge over the river that was making that sound. I'll let you just enjoy it for a second. So now I'm going to show you a few still photographs that illustrate how this layout was built. First of all, I used a flash to get inside so you could see the garage had a new car in it. He took inexpensive toy cars and detailed, painted, and weathered them to look like gorgeous models. Now here are a few overall shots so you can get an idea of the scope of this layout. I'm not sure the exact size of it, but this is the left-hand side, and you can see the staging yard on the left, which we saw at the end of the video. And then this is the middle part of the layout, and most of the action that you saw in the videos was on the left side here. But on the right side, the track went into a tunnel into the room to the right of the wall. And then inside that wall was another room with the final staging yard on the other end of the layout, which you see here. In order to get to that staging yard, you had to go around to the right side of that second room, up I guess you'd call it a slight nolix, and, wind up to the higher level. Now, I mentioned that he scratch-built every single one of his cars, and this is a shot of the underside. You can see he's used lead shot to weight the cars down. The trucks were 3D printed Gilpin tram sets, and he put Cady ON30 24-inch rib-backed wheels in the trucks. But other than that, they were all scratch-built from balsa wood and cardboard, and of course painted with acrylic paints. It's worth mentioning that he spent some real quality time figuring out the exact curvature of those bumpers that are next to the link and pin couplers, and of course that was a key feature of all the cars on his railroad. This allowed them to go through S-curves without causing derailments or anything like that. Now, on another subject, the trees were quite nice, and I mentioned the use of furnace filter for building them, but you can see he also had some asparagus fern trees, that one on the right, and some other more conventional sagebrush branch type trees. This shows the overall quality of the modeling. The scenery, the buildings, the trees, the backdrop is really stunning. I really enjoyed this. He had covered up a washout with some steel girders. I don't know if he had a prototype photo of this or if he just made it up, but it was really interesting to run an engine over it. Here's an engine facility that he had built. I wish I could show you this, but I didn't take a picture of it. But that turntable was just a compact disc sitting in a holder, and then he decorated the top of it. And here's a close-up of that engine terminal with a small engine there. This is another shot of the bridge that you heard the gurgling brook electronic sound coming from. This was just another picture I took of it. The backdrop was very good, and including this airplane painted on it that really sets the tone for what era we're modeling. And here's another shot of that airplane in the backdrop with some detailed buildings up against the backdrop. Isn't that pile of trash nice? There's another turntable there, too, also made with a CD in a holder. I mentioned briefly in the video section that he had hooks on the cabooses for extra link and pin couplers in case you dropped one or were missing one, as well as those lanterns that could light up. Very nice. And in case you want to study it, here's that card that he produced showing how he cuts little pieces of extruded foam into bricks, glues them together, and paints them to look like realistic stone walls. To communicate with his onboard decoders, he uses the CVP product system that looks like this on the front. And then on the back, he had a list of all of the function buttons and what they did to make it real easy for the operators. He showed me a couple of types of batteries that he typically uses. For the smaller locomotives, he uses these 3.7 volt 400 milliamp batteries. And then for the larger engines, he's able to fit in a slightly larger 2500 milliamp hour batteries. And these are the chargers that he uses to charge the batteries in between operating sessions. Of course, to go from the batteries up to the decoder voltages, you need a step-up circuit, and this is the one that he uses. And this is a picture of the air-wire radio receiver that he uses in the locomotives to receive the CVP throttle signals. And he gives clinics on this, which this is an exhibit from. Now, in case you're thinking, oh, I don't have any artistic talent, I could never do anything like that, I don't have any kind of room like that to build a layout, I just wanted to show you that Bob didn't start with this layout. He started by building what are called micro layouts and displaying them at shows and finding other people that he could get ideas from. And so these are just a couple of examples of some of the micro layouts that he built before he tackled this much larger project. So I hope that encourages you a little bit. So I don't mean to rant and rave, but I just want to stress that there was nothing that I just showed you that cost him almost anything. It took him about 5 years to build this, and I hope it inspires you as much as it inspired me to spend more time with my acrylic paints and my used cereal boxes and make great works of art. So for now, this is Burr Stewart wishing you to continue having much fun with trains, whether you can afford it or not.
Oh boy, this is going to be a saw-by, I can tell already.
How many cars you got on
You
there?
got the train behind us, right?
Yes, sir.
And your next work is in also in
We're
Geneseo.
going to do Geneseo.
Okay, we got one car to pick up.
I don't know whether that one will fit.
I think it's gonna fit.
Oh no. Is he too long for the saw?
I think he might be.
We're going to have to do a saw-by.